Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Education for Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Could we please have a roll call?
Yes, you may. Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Fox.
Here.
Ms. Weems.
Present.
Ms. Heinrich.
Here.
Mr. Walker. Here. I myself am here. Dr. Blau.
I am also here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Let us please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. They moved it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moved it on us. All right. Okay, items from the president. Approval of the agenda. Yes, Mr.
So moved.
Support. All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda by Mr. Rich, supported by Ms. Heinrich. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Wonderful. Okay, I would like to begin this evening with an apology to the community. Over the past several weeks since the last couple of meetings that we have had, I have reached out to several members of our community who have been kind enough to be gracious with their time and also be brutally honest with me. And I have benefited greatly from their perspective, wisdom, and advice. In particular, I want to thank Ms. Tracy Pease. She helped me understand something, and that's in particular what I'd like to apologize for this evening. At our February 6th board meeting, and I want to acknowledge there's a big difference between intent and impact, and it's the impact that matters. So while my intent was to share initiatives, DEI initiatives that we have ongoing currently in our district that are consistent with the DEI initiatives being recommended by the National School Board Association. What I failed to realize was how insensitive and dismissive my listing of those items were to our community members and students who continue to have negative experiences. And it was Ms. Pease who helped me understand that, and I am very grateful to you. And I'm also extremely grateful to the other members of the community who have been willing to sit down and have long, difficult conversations with me. I have taken your ideas and suggestions. I have shared them with Dr. Delgado and Mr. Greg Smith, our DEI director, and we are taking steps in those directions based upon many of those recommendations. So again, my apologies to the community for my lack of sensitivity and my dismissiveness. Although that was not my intent, that was definitely the impact, and I want to take responsibility for that and apologize. On a different note, I would like to thank our PTA Council for the magnificent dinner that was hosted last evening, celebrating custodians, teachers, paraprofessionals, and students, and all of their hard work and commitment to service on behalf of the students of our district. It was a wonderful event, and it was very heartwarming to see so many hardworking members of our district recognized and celebrated by the parents of the schools within which they do their work every single day. Okay, moving on to items from the secretary.
The board has received communications regarding changes to board meeting agendas, the request for a ceasefire resolution, Head Start resources, Head Start full enrollment initiative, Head Start fiscal year 2023 improper payment study, Head Start new rule to improve childcare access, affordability, and stability, the February 14th, 2024 special board meeting, Election Day, and the Origin event at Imagine Theater. The board acknowledges communications and responds when appropriate. A list of correspondence can be found in the board packet, accessible on the Farmington Public Schools website.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. Now we have our legislative update. Mr. Rich.
Thank you. So a few things right now. There are current budget hearings ongoing right now. Following Governor Whitmer's budget proposals, we are seeing continued pushes for additional resources for schools across our state. We are looking at more enshrining our free breakfast and lunch programs so that it's not just a budgetary item every year, but we're looking at actual legislation to have it be a continued program, which just means so much for not just our students here in the district, but also across the state. Looking at previous legislation that came forward, the House passed House Bill 4279, which modified the requirements of taxes levied for career and technical education programs by a vote of 100 to 6. So this allows an intermediate school district to use that CTE millage to contract with another ISD to for career and technical education programs, which gives more flexibility to ISDs to offer programming to their districts. We have such a great program here in Oakland County, and hopefully this also means more funds coming in as surrounding counties see that kind of effort and work, and that means then we'll have more students coming in and using those programs. So a great benefit all around. And so that now goes to the Senate Education Committee for its consideration. Lastly, just wanted to flag that the Senate Education Committee approved dyslexia screening requirements, and so that was Senate Bills 567 and 568 regarding early detection for dyslexia and requiring teacher preparation institutions to teach specific literacy-related material. Some are calling the bills a little bit prescriptive, but at the same time, there is a lot of strong support for identifying children with signs of dyslexia, as well as other reading disabilities, by ensuring that these screeners and assessments catch all types of reading issues to kind of assist in that as soon as possible. So that continues to go on to the full Senate for its consideration, and so I'll be continuing to monitor those as well.
Thank you very much. That's very good news, all of that.
Dr. Blau? It was about
Yes.
his report.
Yes.
I'm also working with a group that would like to see our students be educated on how to register to vote early. And so they wanted to know, because as everybody knows, the maps have changed again. So we want to educate students that, because some of your students can be able to vote early, I think it's 17, or start getting them ready to vote. And so whether they are Democrat, Republican, whatever, they want to give that education and then figure out how to register to vote them through the communities. So I will probably have someone come in and speak in the future on how to have that done so that they could register early.
Thank you. Next, we have district updates. Dr. Delgado.
Thank you, Dr. Blau, and good evening to our board. So after midwinter break, we are full speed ahead, full throttle in this second semester, but we are wrapping up our kind of winter activities. So a couple of congratulations and celebrations. So congratulations to our North Farmington High School men's basketball team, who are district champions and are literally playing right now against Groves down at Renaissance. So I don't know if anybody has the score, but let's wish our boys well. I know that our ladies played last week as well, so congratulations to everybody. Also, really special congratulations to Lorelei Schrum, who is 6th in the state, in the entire state, in girls wrestling. And she's out of North Farmington High School. I saw some great pictures of her up on the podium. She looked very, very proud of herself, and we're very proud of you, Lorelei. So thank you for all that great effort. Couple of other celebrations. So the Farmington Public Schools Harrison Dance Company, under the direction of Toy Banks, auditioned for the Regional High School Dance Festival. They were selected to perform 2 dances at the festival. The Harrison Dance Company competed against hundreds of other dance programs and dances for this honor. The festival is hosted by the Governor's School of the Arts in Norfolk, Virginia, March 7th through 10th. So congratulations to Director Banks and all of our dance students in the Harrison Dance Company. Also, gymnastics. Our Farmington Public Schools Farmington United gymnastics team scored their highest score of the season, a 144.3, beating out Lakeland by 5 points and earning the regional championship. So they will compete on March 8th, 2024 at Kennewa Hills High School to compete in the team competition. Farmington United Gymnastics, also known as FUG, is one out of 12 teams that will be competing for the state title, and the team is coached by Jeff Dwyer. So congratulations to all of our incredible regional winners as well. We have also had a very engaging and celebratory and educational Black History Month. I was able to participate in door judging at the amazing doors that all of the teachers and students decorated their doors with educational Black History Month celebrations at Hillside Elementary. And so many of the students were able to come out and explain the kind of vision behind their door. The rubric that we had to do with educational importance, as well as creativity and historical accuracy. And so the students were more than willing to share all of their wonderful energy that they put towards. So the entire school was transformed into essentially a museum. And so we really appreciate all of the teachers and the students and their time in that. Also wanted to celebrate, it was mentioned briefly earlier, the community movie of Origin that was really sponsored by our DEI department in partnership with multiple school districts around the area. I want to give a shout out to Greg Smith and all of his incredible leadership for this. This was really, if you were able to see the movie, it's a very emotional and deep and strong movie for us to really kind of think about the intersection of civil and human rights. It's a beautifully created movie that is kind of woven through the lenses of the caste system in India, as well as Holocaust survivors and the African American experience, especially during the civil rights era. And so Mr. Smith and his team organized this packed house of this movie, as well as a wonderful panel after, where we could have some community dialogue and discussion. So really powerful event. And so I appreciate everyone who was able to participate. I know most of our board members were there and many of our community members as well. Also had an opportunity, not directly related to Black History Month, but certainly related to the civil rights and human rights endeavors. At Power Middle School, they had an incredible opportunity. 7th grade teachers and their team, 7th grade teacher Mrs. Tracy Willis, organized a middle school film festival at Power Middle School. And if you were able to attend, there were many community members, parents, grandparents that I spoke with, but it was just amazing. You walked into the room and the kids had popcorn and candy and everything set up, but they had their laptops, and you walked through the decades of 1910 all the way through 2010, and the students themselves had choice in their learning to pick items or issues that related to historically relevant civil rights or human rights endeavors. And then they created a movie, a 3 to 5 minute movie, along with a reflection page. And so we, as the participants, the moviegoers, if you will, had headphones that were sanitized, and we went and talked to the students and then plugged in the laptop, watched their movie, and then moved through the decades. And the students, we talk about authentic tasks and the real relevance. The students were visibly not only proud of the work that they did, but they were also really engaged in telling us about how passionate they were about the injustice of some of these civil rights and human rights issues historically, and how it applies to their lives today. So incredible educational experience. Topics included things like Title IX, the Detroit 12th Street riots, LA Zoot Suit incidents, the Radium Girls, and so many others. And so congratulations to Tracy Willis and the entire team at Power. I know their new principal, Mrs. Middleton, just loves that she's at Power and really embraced this as well. So congratulations to all involved in that. We're celebrating everything this year and moving quickly towards the final stretch in the school year, but we are already planning for the next school year. So we've successfully completed our schools of choice window. Once again, we continue to be a destination district. We approved over 150 families who we're looking forward to getting them enrolled very early and welcoming them to the FPS family. We moved the timeline back a little bit this year so we could do this in January to get approvals in February. And thank you to Dr. Coffin and her team working all through midwinter break and getting this ready so we can move into the staffing season ready to invite these families, enroll them, and get them over here for some spring items and events at the schools, like spring fairs and orientations, and really start that family connection with our new families through the schools of choice process. And then finally, I want to promote our One School, One Book. Board members, you have a copy at your desk here. But our One School, One Book process here in Farmington Public Schools, this year's book is called A Boy Called Bat. And it's the beautiful, beautiful story about a young boy and his love for animals, especially skunks, as well as the love and appreciation of all people in all forms and fashions that they come. And so this is such a point of pride for our school district. I tried to work with Mr. Jim White and Mrs. Hendrickson to do some video clips, if you saw, to give some hints and clues to the book before the big reveal. But we are really excited to continue this tradition in Farmington Public Schools, and we encourage all of you to go out and get a book, A Boy Called Bat by Elena K. Arnold. So those are my district updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Delgado. Next, we have the Farmington Online update. Would you like to introduce?
Absolutely. I see Dr. Coffin moving to the microphone, and Mr. Curtis Lovio is going to come. We are very excited to let you learn a little bit more about Farmington Online and hear from Dr. Coffin and Mr. Lovio tonight.
Yes, thank you. Good evening again, Board. We're happy to give the Board an update on what's been happening in our Farmington Online program, and I'm excited to turn this over to Mr. Lovio, and he will share some of the recent updates with the program.
Thank you, Dr. Coffin. Good evening, everyone. A question I'm occasionally asked as the director of Farmington Online is, oh wait, you still exist? Or wasn't that online a COVID thing? And well, the answer is yes, we still exist. And no, Farmington Online is not about COVID. It is about so much more. And I'm excited to share a little bit about that with you tonight. So why are students in online learning now? We like to say it's for a reason and a season. Online learning is definitely not for everyone, and it is certainly not for everyone all the time. Students and families come to us during a particular season in their educational journey where they need that flexibility of an online learning environment, and they're in a place where they can support that learning from home. So for example, many of our students are former homeschool families that otherwise would not have been connected to Farmington Public Schools at all, but now, instead of homeschooling, they're able to learn from home and be a part of Farmington Public Schools. And of course, too, we do have some students that need that access to an online education while working through some personal, serious physical or mental obstacles or difficulties. And that flexibility is key. Some of our students are enrolled online so that they have the flexibility to work, compete, or train at a high level. I'd love to share a few examples with you. Victoria here has been with us for several years while she travels the country as an elite competitive figure skater. Oliver here on the right has been with us for 2 years now and has been completing a saxophone fellowship with Master Mark Berger and an internship with Maestro Goslin, a world-class renowned classical pianist. His third one, Eric, he's been with us for several years now as well, while he plays for the top-tier Victory Honda U18 hockey team out of Southeast Michigan. So just a few examples of taking advantage of that flexible learning. So how does it work? A quick refresher. There are 2 core programs under the umbrella of Farmington Online. There is the virtual self-paced program. That's the entirely self-paced option that is supported by Farmington mentor teachers and is primarily computer-based. The remote live learning program, that's for students who are looking to follow more of a traditional school day, but they do it online from home through Google Meets and other learning platforms. And one thing I do want to be very clear about is that all of our online students are supported by local Farmington teachers. But there is also so much more to our online learning programs. As you know, the social development of students is so important. So this is why we hold regular meetup events, field trips, activities like that, where students have a chance to interact with each other face-to-face and to learn hands-on. As another example, our middle school students complete what we call Genius projects. This is where students choose an area of interest or a problem to solve, deeply research it, and then present their findings publicly at a Genius Expo. We've had students dive into a broad range of topics from the structure of DNA to computer programming to feeding the homeless. We also want you to know that not only can Farmington Online students connect with their peers within virtual programming, but all Farmington Online students can still participate and do in their home schools, after-school activities, clubs, and athletics. Next, I'd like to share with you a little bit about how Farmington Online is connecting with the local community and how we are getting the word out about these programs. So as you saw earlier, many of our students are elite athletes. We are reaching out directly to this community through a partnership with the Farmington Hills Suburban Ice Arena. You can see our tagline, School on the Go, there listed on the boards. We also have a partnership with the local Farmington Community Library. They already have a robust homeschool community or homeschool group rather, that meets regularly, and we've partnered with them so that we can share with families the options that are available with Farmington schools as an alternative to homeschooling. And lastly, we have a partnership with the Hawk. I talked earlier about how important it is for students to have opportunities to socialize and enrich their learning in person. So Farmington Online students now have the opportunity to take tuition-sponsored classes at the Hawk as a part of their total online learning experience. And in exchange, Farmington Online is advertised in the digital signage at the Hawk, as well as posted in the Hawk's activity guide. You can see us holding it there. And this publication goes out to thousands of families in the community. Not only are we raising awareness of our programming with this partnership with the Hawk, but online students are enriching their learning experience. Here, for example, is a few of our students at the Hawk in the 2D art studio in a class there. Shifting gears for just a moment here, I also want you to know that our department, the Farmington Online department, is doing even more for the district than just supporting the hundreds of students that are taking online classes. We are also deeply involved in the district's county partnership programs. So just to throw a few acronyms at you here, OSTC, OTEC, ACE. We have many partnership programs with Oakland County that Farmington students, both online and in person, have access to. However, a lot of families just don't know about them or don't know how these programs can complement either a part-time in-person or online learning schedule. And one bit of success that I just have to share with you here, the Oakland ACE program, so that accelerated college experience, the third one you see up there, where students can earn up to 60 college credits, totally tuition-free. Farmington Public Schools, from last year to this upcoming year, went from among the lowest participation in the county to the highest participation rate in the county since we started working on this and promoting and helping families be aware of these options. So where do we go from here? What's the future of Farmington Online? Well, one focus is we're going to continue to reach that homeschool community and the many local students who live here but are not yet connected to Farmington schools. Another opportunity that we have as a district, and I really want to draw your attention, the board, to this one, an opportunity that we have, if authorized by the superintendent and the school board, we can open up Farmington Online to contiguous county school of choice, and then be a beacon of online learning not only for Farmington, but for surrounding communities as well. We do get inquiries all the time from local non-residents and surrounding communities that are looking for online programming, but we have not been able to admit them yet. Most importantly, though, we are going to continue to serve the Farmington Public Schools students and families who have that unique need right now for online learning. So I want to thank you for your time and also share with you one last brief clip from one of our Farmington Online families.
My name is Joe McNally and my wife Marie. We have our son Jonathan. He's in the online virtual program with Farmington Public Schools. He's 6 years old in Miss Rad's class.
It's fun to learn from home.
I just started my business, so it fit like a glove that we would, have him at home and just kind of be able to have that flexibility to teach him online.
I love having my mom and dad as a teacher.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Ms. Smith?
So with the students online, and thank you, Mr. Lobio and Dr. Coughlin, for the presentation. But does that affect our students that for free and reduced lunch? How does that work? Do we count those students as well as our enrollment since we get
Yes,
free and
they're-
okay.
Yeah, they're definitely counted as part of the enrollment and on the regular rules. Yes.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Walker.
You mentioned the possibility of opening this up to other areas.
Yes.
What's the level of, can you give me some idea where we're getting inquiries from and the level of number of inquiries you might get over a month, 6 months, or something like that?
Yeah, so we get inquiries every month, at least a handful. They typically come most in the summertime, where it's kind of a little bit higher, or springtime, where we get those inquiries. But to give you a little bit more idea of the mechanics here, so right now the school of choice window is way ahead of the next school year, of course, right? So it is possible to have a school of choice window just for online programming that extends further beyond that. We talked a little bit about earlier how there's usually a particular reason or something that prompts that they're going to go online. That's not something usually families can predict, 6, 8, 10 months in advance. So if we were to have a separate school of choice window that just applied to online programming, particularly in that K-8 space, then we would be able to honor and bring in those families just for that online programming. And of course, that doesn't mean they're automatically going to come into the district in another way. There's procedures and protocols for that. But we would have the opportunity to do that. It's hard for me to tell you exact numbers because right now we've always had to tell people, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. And eventually that kind of message gets around.
Any sense of the general locales as to where people are calling from?
Yeah, a lot of Wayne County, some Southfield area. But really, we've had inquiries from all the surrounding counties. Not a huge number or anything like that, but we definitely have had inquiries.
Thank you.
Ms. Heinrich?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, but if you go back, your slide where you compared the virtual self-paced with the remote live, I think it was like the second slide. Right
Yep, the two
there.
sides of the programming.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, can you just kind of help me understand what the teacher mentor supported is for the virtual self-paced, what that looks like? I don't quite, I don't understand what that means. I mean,
Certainly.
does every student have a mentor? Does it require a full-time staff teacher, or how is that
Yes,
put
so,
in place?
so when we say a teacher mentor, so we just mean that is a Farmington Public Schools teacher assigned to be their teacher of record and to work with them, to provide assistance, to help them navigate the learning system depending on which system that they're on. It's the first person that they can go to for questions. It's someone that the parent and student can meet with. They'll often have weekly meetings. They are required and do check in at least every single week, but it's usually more often. It's a regular flow of communication with the family and the student. So they have a mentor, but we just mean they're not the ones actually delivering live instruction throughout an entire full school day. That's more the difference between the two sides. So the traditional teachers, that's the remote live learning side. So that's where they're the ones actually delivering that live instruction. whereas the mentors are supporting, they're helping them navigate, they're giving them extra assistance when they need it. It looks like more of a supporting role than the primary deliverer of the content.
And so how does that fit in as far as staffing? Is that like a class for a teacher? I mean, is it additional duty for a teacher, or how are the teachers selected? And what is their, how do they fit into the, you know, our teachers and our staffing? Are they at the high school? Are they middle school?
Sure, so to give you an example, at the high school level, one of the classes for some of the teachers at North and Farmington is to be a virtual mentor teacher. So they have a period dedicated to their day where they can work with a whole caseload of students, similar to a traditional class size. So they might have, you know, around 30 students, something like that. And they're working with them every week, they're monitoring their progress, talking to families if something doesn't seem to be going well, helping them troubleshoot, and really just ensuring that they're successful.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes more sense now to understand that. And then the remote live, I mean, there's been a lot of community questions as far as the staffing, and, you know, earlier they were talking about that. And so, and I know our district evaluates programs and things like that, but, you know, what does that look like? Is there a minimum number of students that we need in order to staff them, or how do you put the classes together?
Yeah, great question. So we've continued to make adjustments to that as enrollment has changed. So for example, years ago when it was more COVID focused, we did have a lot more remote live teachers. So that was the number of staff there has been right-sized to the current enrollment in those classes. So we've continued to adjust that. We do have some smaller class sizes for sure in some of the remote programs, particularly in elementary. But many of our students, many of our staff may have multiple duties or share resources. So we have some virtual mentor teachers that have larger caseload sizes because they can handle that through the day, whereas some of our remote teachers will have smaller class sizes. It really depends on the level. But yes, we do aim for traditional class sizes for any remote teacher caseload.
And so do we have teacher-led live instruction for all grade levels, or is it just elementary and middle school?
Yes, it is not for all grade levels. So it is not in the high school. High school is virtual self-paced only. So it is only in the elementary and the middle school that we have the remote live instruction. And then that again was, you know, something related to that trade-off between cost and student numbers. And at the high school, it's particularly more complicated just because of the sheer number of classes you have to provide for a student to be able to go through. Whereas, say in elementary, you know, it's just one teacher doing all the classes, or in middle school, it's just a few course subjects that you need to be sure to cover.
Ms. Fox.
Yes, you may know that I was a consultant with Michigan Virtual for over 8 years. I truly believe in online learning. Particularly with the mentor. The mentor is very, very important. They make sure that each and every student complete all of their courses. If it was not for mentors, at least with Michigan Virtual, we 6th through 12th grade, students would not be finishing those courses because it's rigorous, and they wouldn't be. I also would like to say to you that I remember when you guys first started, you've come a long way. I like everything that you're doing, both online and creating, you know, what you do with our kids. It gives some kids who are sick, gives some kids who don't feel like they belong in a particular, so this is an option to have students to continue. And then for many students, you know, especially in high school, you got to be able to do online learning because most of your college courses are going to be that way as well. So there's all kinds of wonderful reasons for having our kids to be online. Thanks.
Thank you for that recognition too. I appreciate that. And I do want to emphasize there, the students that need this really do need this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I appreciated this presentation. I do have a few comments and questions. So I never really thought about the types of students who may need this rather than just prefer it. So I appreciated you highlighting that for me. The amount of flexibility that our whole community needs, frankly. I never really thought about that for children as much as I usually just think about it for adults. But particularly students who are involved in competitive events, sports, that sort of thing. I didn't really appreciate until you highlighted it for me. I know several kids actually that benefit from that for that reason. I'm also aware of many students who need it for the season. There is, as we all know, an increase in the number of students who need support with mental health and have the need for both in and outpatient services related to that. And we've also seen an increase in the number of students who unfortunately make some poor decisions and need to explore online learning for a season because they've made some poor decisions, and that has increased with all of the instances of kids doing some inappropriate things and not really understanding or appreciating the consequences, particularly around threats. So I totally understand the need. I wonder what other school districts in our area offer this kind of program. I'm interested in understanding the number of students that benefit from this program, the number of resources that are allocated to the program, and just sort of that I don't want to rapid fire you, maybe we'll just start with that.
Sure, yeah, I can give you kind of a high-level overview if that would help. So you asked about surrounding community. So roughly speaking, the biggest programs are in Novi, so the close neighbor, and in Oxford. So those are the biggest ones. There are many sprinkled around, but those are kind of the biggest nearby programs. To give you a big picture idea of resources, so we have over 200 students right now that we serve, and about 6 full-time teachers. So to give you kind of just a rough sense of the staffing and the students.
I just want to say one more thing, and that is, so many kids are being bullied in junior high and high school, and I know for one of my sons, I put him online because he was being bullied. And so, there's a lot of bullying going on, and this would be a way to help kids to feel comfortable and also be able to stay with their programs.
Yeah. Sometimes students just need to step away for a season,
Yeah.
like we talked about, and then return.
Yes.
I have a follow-up question. So you mentioned that there are about half a dozen staff associated with this. Is that
For
K through
teachers.
12?
Yes,
Okay.
for teachers, yes.
Okay, that's helpful. And then across the student population, about how many are in high school versus in K through 8?
Yeah, it's around 100-ish in the high school, and then roughly split between elementary and middle.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead.
No, when you talked about the partnership with the Hawk and the classes, that kind of caught my interest. Do they get credit for the classes, or are they enrichment classes? Or, because we're talking about online school, but obviously when they go into the Hawk, it's in person. Is that during the school day, after school, or I just kind of a little bit better understanding what that involves.
Yeah, sure. It's one of the program or one of the partnerships we're most excited about right now. So this is primarily for our self-paced K through 8 students. So they're students that have a lot of flexibility. So they are able to go to a class each season right now, so 2 classes through the year. And it's purely enrichment, it's not a credit. It's really just meant to give them a chance to connect, to foster social development, peer relationships, all those pieces that we want students to continue to develop no matter where they are. And so we are able to support that at a fairly low cost through Farmington schools, and then we get a huge return in terms of the community awareness and then bringing more students into the program.
I'm so excited to hear the amazing developments that have happened with our virtual self-paced and remote live online programs, and the vast variety of ways in which these online programs are supporting student learning for a variety of different needs. And different reasons, and sometimes maybe just a season at a time. So thank you so much for your continual leadership of this phenomenal resource for our students. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have discussion items, and first up is the World Language French Adoption Proposal.
And I see Mrs. Hendrickson coming to the podium to talk to us about French. Last year, she spoke to us about Espanol, and now she's talking to us about Francais.
And I still do not speak either language. So, good evening, Board of Education and Dr. Delgado. I am here to seek a discussion around a proposal for a French textbook adoption, similar to what we did last year with Spanish. We know that Farmington Public Schools offers a variety of languages. French and Spanish are two that you've heard about, and what it provides for our students. As we did with Spanish, we had been a long time since we had adopted new textbooks for Spanish, same thing with French. We wanted to take what we knew were strengths for us in our current curriculum and instructional approach, but also integrate some more best practices that comes from what we call ACTFL, A-C-T-F-L, the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages. And so just like for Spanish, we were seeking certain types of experiences to become a part of our instructional approach in French around intercultural connections, very high stimulating tasks, problem-based learning, critical thinking, specific ways in which how it approaches language and grammar. And so you'll notice that this slide is the same as last year because we're seeking the same benefits in a new textbook. What happened this year was a little different from last year. So last year, we had an extensive number of Spanish teachers looking at the resource. We had guiding principles and rubrics we were using as we looked through a particular number of textbooks and decided on a particular text. What was interesting is as that text came into play, and these were the priorities that we set in that text selection, our French teachers heard about, were interested in exploring that. So what happened at the beginning of this school year is we provided our French teachers with pilot preview copies of the same text series, but in French. And so there was interest, excitement. We had a few conversations about whether we wanted to look at a variety text or stick with this one. And they felt as a professional learning community, they could have stronger collaborative conversations across languages. Use similar texts, so it could support PLC conversation, professional learning, and common experiences in Spanish and French. And so what we're bringing to you today and what you're passing along is the hard copies of the French version of the same text series we brought to you for Spanish. We appreciated what it has provided this year in Spanish, and we look forward to bringing it forward to our students and staff for the coming school year. We would be looking for this text for French 1, 2, and 3. As we talked about last year, there's self-assessments, there's performance-based assessments, there's a lot of resource for teachers and students, there's a hard copy, there's a digital book. And for the same reasons as last year, again, this is kind of a replication of what you heard from me last year, is all the text highlights for Spanish were text highlights for French. And so we're really looking to just continue with the same publisher and the same approach to Spanish and French instruction. We'll come back. What questions might the board have around our continued use of this text for French in addition to Spanish?
Yes, Ms. Weems.
You mentioned, I recall what we did for Spanish. This is the same curriculum,
Yep.
just for French?
Yep.
Can you remind me, if you know offhand, how many students do we have interested in Spanish versus French?
I'd have to look back at those numbers because in preparation for today, I didn't look back at the Spanish. Spanish is our highest enrollment in the foreign languages, and then French. And so you'll notice that the cost that we prepared for you for French 1, 2, and 3 is a smaller cost than what we presented to you last year for Spanish 1 and 2 to meet the enrollment.
I also noticed that it was reduced for schools. Is every school associated? Was Warner missing, or?
So there is only one middle school currently, based on interest, who also is doing French and Spanish at the 8th grade. So we, at this time, only need to purchase the French for one of the middle schools, but then purchase it for all of the high schools.
And what happens as in if that changes?
Then we buy additional copies for additional sections or buildings, as we would any year as numbers fluctuate up and down in enrollment in different courses and programs.
And just curious, how do we assess interest? Are we polling the kids like in 6th and 7th grade, or?
So during the course selection process, at the middle school and high school, we understand what students' interests are, and then we schedule and staff based on student interest.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Nick?
Yeah, a couple of questions. First of all, you have French 1, 2, and 3, but we have 4 years of high school, so what do students do their 4th year?
So our French 3 is a smaller group of students, and some might take the IB French. You'll notice that's on the IB list. And so I don't believe at this time, I'd have to double check, I don't think we have the AP French like we have the AP Spanish.
So we don't have AP French, we don't have French
I have to look
4.
back, I have to double check on the AP French piece. I know we do have IB French, and I know we have Spanish 3, but we've only used this textbook for the earlier levels of French and Spanish. We've used different texts for like AP, because once you start to get into level 4, you're in advanced placement. I just have to double check what our enrollment is in the AP French if we're running that right now, so I could follow up with those numbers at a later date.
Yeah, and also, does the IB program use the same textbook?
They use
or-
a different text.
They
So we
use
like have a
different
different,
text.
last year we approved a different Spanish text for IB last year, and they used a different text due to the curricular standards for that programming.
Although you did note in your presentation
Yes.
that these level 1 and level 2 French materials do align with
Yes.
both the AP and the IB.
Yeah, so there are certain themes and topics that occur within these, the lower grade level courses that help streamline into a continuation into the AP and or IB. And that was one of the things that we paid particular attention to when we looked last year for Spanish and now French, to make sure that this program would support
that.
continuity into our higher level AP and IB foreign language classes.
Yes, yes.
Just as a former Spanish teacher myself years ago, one of the things I appreciate about both the Spanish and the French series is that it really moves beyond the traditional instruction of world language. For those of us who took world language years ago, you may remember conjugating verbs or lists of vocabulary or grammatical sentences. It's really about proficiency-based instruction, which aligns directly with our authentic tasks and real-world situations. It's the creation of language based on a reservoir of vocabulary as opposed to regurgitating phrases. And so it's really, really, when she mentioned ACTFL, the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Language, that is the body internationally that really governs the efficacy of any kind of language program, and this aligns with all of that. So as a former Spanish teacher, I would endorse the proficiency-based approach that we see in these textbooks.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other thing that I recognize, and you sparked my recollection on this, in both the Spanish materials and the French materials, I see so much more than just a learning of the language. It's a learning of the cultures, the countries that represent the language, and, down to like food and taste and travel and all of that sort of stuff. So a lot of like social studies in this as well. Thank you.
I noticed that in the French 1 textbook early, in one of the very first chapters, there's a map that shows the different places in the world where French is spoken as a primary language with highlights around the countries and the people there.
And it lends itself to a conversation about dialects in different French countries as well as different Spanish-speaking countries. And so that's what was wonderful about teaching a world language is you can incorporate all these aspects. And this series does it very well.
Yes, Ms. Hyman.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to understand the invoices and look at what you're asking us to purchase. So, I mean, the first invoice has 30 copies of the hardcover and digital. So, and then the second invoice has 15 copies of French one for hardcover and digital, and then they have workbooks. So does every student get their hardcover textbook and then they get a disposable
Every
workbook?
student will get the consumable.
Okay, which
You'll
is the
notice that there's a
workbook.
5-year subscription for the
Right.
consumable of that. They all get access to the online. We do notice that students tend to want to lean online and not hard copy. So what we do is we make sure, depending on the course and the teacher group, we talk about whether we should have one-to-one hard copy. We know everyone will be one-to-one digital, one-to-one with the consumable. And in this scenario, similar to Spanish, we're buying the hard copy as classroom sets, but then we buy enough, so if in the event we have any student that wants a hard copy, they can take that home for the year. And so you'll notice some of the difference numbers is because we also base our purchase on current enrollment. So for example, in French 3, which I believe is where you see that 15 number.
No, it's
It's
the
which
second
grade?
one. It's because you have French 1.
Mm-hmm.
The first invoice is French 1, and then the second invoice is French 1 also. And I
There's
just-
there's multiple, so you'll see a French 1, French 2, and potentially a French 3, depending on whether it's offered at that building. So you should see for each quote, but what we're doing is we're backwards designing from enrollment, and we're not just, we want to be make sure we're fiscally responsible with our numbers.
They had the first two. That was French 1, that building. Okay. How many buildings? 3 buildings.
That's for Farmington.
French 1, French 2. There's 2 buildings.
Right.
Yeah, French 3 is not at every building.
Okay, and then, so.
Current's for North Farmington.
French 1, 2, and 3. So what about if you have kids at Farmington High that want French 3? Do they have to go to North Farmington?
No, we staff based on interest, and so right now, we just don't have the interest to run that section at North, and so we wouldn't buy right now for North, but if we go during the current season of scheduling and we have an interest in French 3, then we would surely buy those resources. So we're just taking current enrollments and section numbers based on students' interest from this year, and we plan accordingly our purchase and then adjust as those things change.
So I'm looking at French 3. So you've got 10 hardcovers, 10 digital, 1 teacher, and then 50 workbooks? And so is that 5 years' worth of workbooks you're buying up front, or are we buying 50 workbooks a year?
Yes, because, that's that 5 times 10. So we prepay for the
Okay.
multi-year subscription of, I think it's a 5-year subscription. Some companies do 6 years.
Right, so what happens after 5 years? I mean, after 5 years, you still have the hardcover textbook, but the digital, you have to renew the digital
Yeah, just like
license?
we do with all of our digital programming, there's X number of subscription, and then we plan that in our budgeting process of when we'll have to renew that. And so we keep track of when things were adopted, when subscriptions come up, and then we budget plan for either renewing that same tool or potentially relooking at a new tool. You should always look at your resources every 5 to 7 years, make sure they're up to date. So at that time, we'd make a decision, is this still serving us or not? And we would choose to either continue or move to another program.
Thank you.
Yes.
I can just share one final thing. There have been a couple of questions about what happens if a student reaches a level like a 300 or an AP, and what do they do? There's always the option of dual enrollment.
Yeah.
And whether it's actually at one of our local community colleges or universities, we're fortunate to have many options for physical transportation to different areas, or online options as well. And so, that often happens. The smaller that your high school gets with decreasing enrollment, the more diluted your elective options get. And so it's tougher to populate those classes. And that's not just for electives. That happens with what we call in the business singleton APs, so a single section of AP European history, for example. You might have 11 students or 8 students who want it, and you can't necessarily run the class, but dual enrollment can always be an option.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, next we have public comment. I'll.
We have one more
We have one
discussion
more.
item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it's technology purchases.
Yes, I see Mr. Wes Prescott is moving his way up to the podium to talk to us about our technology purchase with our staff devices.
Good evening. As we continue to implement the plan for the 2020 bond, you have a recommendation before you to purchase some devices for support staff. We're migrating to laptops and docking stations and dual monitors for this group. With this, they have some of the oldest devices in the district. We're following our refresh cycle of 5 to 6 years for a device. So you'll notice that, again, it's only for the support staff. We try to do these things in phases. One, to decrease the impact on the budget on a year-to-year basis. And also, it's a lot of work deploying all these devices in addition to the normal projects that we have and the continuing bond projects we have over the summer. So we're looking at purchasing laptops, docking stations, and other accessories, monitors for the support staff. If it's approved, we'll get those ordered. They're, I think, about a 2 to 3 week lead time to get here, and then we would be able to get them deployed before staff leave for the summer. The amount you'll see there is about $255,000. If we look at this and project forward for replacement of the rest of the staff mid next year, we are still coming in under budget as to what we had planned for the 2020 bond, so we do like that. With that, are there any questions?
Thank you for your report. If we pass this, what are we going to do with the old devices?
So there's a handful, I shouldn't say a handful of them, a good portion of them are end of life. So we have a recycler that will give us a modest amount of money for some of our e-waste devices. The ones that still might have some life, we're going to keep and use as spares.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So are there new laptops for the elementary, the junior high, and for high school? Is it for all throughout this district?
When we complete this, it will be. Right now, it's for support staff, so the staff at MEC, the staff at admin.
Oh, it's not for students, it's for the staff?
No, this is not for students.
Okay.
No, we have, our students are on a separate refresh cycle.
I see.
Yep.
Okay.
So it says that this is for support staff to start, and your rationale was that they have the oldest devices. About how many staff does this cover?
I believe it's a couple hundred.
That sort of makes sense based off of the price. So
Yep.
then I could like multiply this times 4.2 to get to the rest of the staff. If I wanted to approximate what
When
the
we
next-
look at the entire staff, for the whole project, we come in at about, don't quote me on this, just over $1 million, and I think we budgeted about 1.5.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? Okay.
Fantastic.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
I'm sorry I almost skipped over you. I apologize. And that's why I should always put my glasses on before I move to the next item. Now it's time for public comment. Yeah, I put a number on the first one so I know which side of the deck to start on. Yes, I will. Okay. I say this at each of our meetings, and I'm going to say it again. Thank you. As a board, the only time we are legally allowed to dialogue together around board business, all 7 of us, is in public. We're not ever allowed to discuss board business together unless it's in public. In the state of Michigan, there's legislation called the Open Meetings Act. And it would be against the law for us to gather together and have a conversation about board business without the public present. That said, this venue is our board meeting, an opportunity for us to engage in board discussion and board business in view of the public for transparency purposes. But this is not a public meeting per se. There is always an opportunity for public comment as part of our agenda for any board meeting. But this isn't a public meeting, but rather a meeting of the board held in public. So I just wanted to share that. Each community member who has given us a card for public comment, and if you would like to make public comment but you haven't filled out a card, they're on the back table, and just bring them up here to the ceramic aqua container, and we'll call you up one at a time. I numbered them this time, so I know which end to start with. And you will have 3 minutes to share your public comment. Please know, though, that we are available to meet with you individually, to further understand and hear about and respond to whatever concerns you might have. So please feel free to reach out to us through email, through telephone, text, whatever, and we'll be happy to follow up with you in whatever way is most convenient for you around whatever area of concern you have. Okay. First we have Tracy Pease.
Yep.
Okay.
The job of a school board is also to hold the superintendent accountable, which you have failed miserably at. I don't have to go back 10 years, 6 years, I can just go back in the past 4 years. And when you have, if you have one kid that feels like they're being bullied, if you have one parent that feels like they're being intimidated, that's one too many. That is one too many. When you are given data about how the schools are performing when it comes time to the black students, and you just sweep it under the rug, guess what? It's not working. Mr. Delgado, you need to resign. You need to step down. We just went ahead and gave everybody our intent to sue. And we are also calling on for a federal investigation for the school board. You have failed your students. You have failed the parents. Zach, you have more privilege up there than anybody else. You're a white man. Why have you not questioned anything? You work for a congresswoman. Hell, you're in the same district of media as me.
We are not going to engage in personal attacks.
No, but we are talking about a member of the school board.
We are not going to engage in personal attacks.
Okay, so I will just go ahead and say this. Most of the school board members, you need to step down, otherwise face a recall. And that's all I got to say. See you guys in court.
Next, we have Mr. Bill Lubaway. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lubaway.
Okay. I'm here to talk about, the title is Innovate to Achieve Equity. And the 6-page handout that I gave to you, I'm going to be talking about that briefly, since I have 3 minutes. But I wanted to start off and say that Dr. Greenstein emailed to you and recommends that you act as soon as possible to remediate reading for kids in all grades. And you probably don't have the extra staff laying around to do that, so he recommends that you scope out the job by talking to an experienced contractor like Beyond Basics. Now, my 6-page handout starts with the fact that Michigan ranks 33rd among the 50 states. Pages 1 and 2 are excerpts of importance. First, the Michigan Education Report states, Michigan's educational system is in a rut. Too many parents' dreams have stalled and academic achievement remains largely stagnant across key indicators for success. And NAEP's report card showed that Michigan's literacy scores fell while most states improved. Second, the problems we are tackling describes proficiency laggards and the fact that that has a negative outcome in their life. And there are a couple of attachments. One is at the back, page 5, Michigan's literacy scores, while most scores fell, while most states improved. Page 6 is ELA proficiency rates highlighted equity issues, and it sticks out like a sore thumb what our equity issues are. There's a 33% gap between the African-American students and the white students on that, and we ought to address that. And I also have on page 4, another one of my charts that you may or may not understand, but I compared Farmington to Novi. Novi is rated the #1 school district in Michigan, and I assigned my own grades. But no matter whether it's a grade or not, the one thing that sticks out on this is the abysmal performance at Wood Creek. And I think that's just got to be addressed. And I'm running out of time. And finally, I have put together a plan on page 3, which is an education plan. I'd be glad to talk about you when I have more than 6 seconds left.
Thank you.
So I look forward to talking to some of you.
Thank you. Next, we have Stacy Jackson.
Good evening, Stacy Jackson. I am with an organization called All Race and Life Matter, where real activism serves everyone. Again, as I always say, who I am in this moment is not important. Who I came to represent is. I'm always moved when I come here to speak about the well-being and the academic progress and opportunities for our young people. I'm concerned that the discrimination, the racial biases, and the trauma that's facing all of the students with these experiences is just too grave and too deep for this board not to act more swiftly. It comes a point in time when people really do need to step up and step out to do what is right. What we're facing today is not new. Our nation is a young nation that has had these problems well documented throughout history. Knowing that truth, those in position of leadership today already have a blueprint on what should be done to stop it. I am pleased that this board has been served with an intent to sue. And I am here to address that All Race and Life Matter will be filing a complaint in the federal office with the Department of Civil Rights and the Department of Education. This board and school district does need to be under investigation. History has already shown us that some things are just vile and too deplorable to let happen. Simply saying no and holding everyone accountable under the same rules and policy is what happens. This nation has creeds and oaths that we all recite. The problem is, far too many of us in leadership don't hold one another accountable in living those truths out. I hope tonight, hearing that there's an intent to sue, hearing that there are organizations gravely concerned about what's happening to the students in this district, to file a federal investigation really moves you to stand up and take leadership and hold those responsible for teaching and training and rearing your young people accountable.
Thank you. Nope, that's not how we roll here. No, that is not how we roll. We'll have to ask you to leave the room. Mr. Paul Steele is next.
Hi, good evening. Sorry about that. Good evening. Glad you did a presentation on the Farmington line. Most of you know it's one of my favorite topics. It would have been nice to see the presentation prior to the meeting, so I didn't have to write some chicken scratch notes here, but whatever. So I wanted to talk about what was not covered in the presentation, or some things were basically glossed over a little bit. Some of you asked about the enrollment by students, and Mr. Lovio gave a broad couple hundred people. According to the official count day numbers, in the last 2 years, it's run between 150 and 160 students. For some reason, towards the end of the year, it seems to have ballooned up to 200 to 210, which I don't understand since it's supposed to be a long-term commitment for the students. But of those students, as of late September this year, there was 30 remote students in K through 8. My understanding is there's 5 100% dedicated full-time teachers for those 30 students. It may have changed since then, but I don't think it's changed that much. So I think that's something all of you should probably know. The other thing that's kind of been glossed over is the, kind of results of this standardized test scores. Back in June, there was a presentation done on the spring state assessments. Within the presentation, which was, I don't even know if they got to the slide, there was a statement that said Farmington Inline performance was below the district performance for all students, but it didn't say how much. So I looked back a little farther, and back in June there was a presentation. It showed a chart with the spring 2023 NWEA map growth, and it had a percent that met their projected growth. Remote students met their projected growth at a rate between 20 and 30% lower than the rest of the students in this district. And that's never been really talked about at all. I've written all of you multiple times, presented this information. And I find it a little odd that in the entire time this program's been going, which is 3 years, it's never explicitly been approved by the board. It's never been offered for approval by the board. It just started and it's going. So I think that's something you might want to look at in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Jordan Tepman.
Hi, my name is Jordan, and I am a Jewish student at Warner Middle School. Last year in 6th grade, I had experienced some anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, along with hate speech. One of my peers in my class had made and sent me a disturbing video about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Remind you, this is on a school Chromebook and sent from a school email account to a school email account. This video said things like the Jewish problem, which means that the problem is that Jewish people are still alive or Hitler should have finished the job. Among other things that were said, there were also false images given, or known as propaganda. During this time, when the video was sent, I spent many class periods crying in the counseling office. The video made me feel targeted, and I was highly offended as a member of the Jewish community. I did not feel safe in school, and I wanted to let the board know about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Susan Tepman.
I'd like to start out by addressing a few concerns about the last school board meeting. This was a special meeting and had an agenda item dedicated to issues raised by and on behalf of members of our Palestinian community. During a discussion about moving public comment, it was repeatedly stated that the Palestinian community was present to speak and that moving the agenda around would not be fair. While I agree that the agenda shouldn't be moved around on a whim, the characterization that the Palestinian community were the only members in the audience who wanted to speak was misleading. This was further compounded by a board member saying that only the Palestinian community has contacted her about concerns within the district. I listened to public comment at the last meeting, and it seems that the district has work to do. Sounds like they haven't handled some of the concerns from the Muslim community appropriately for things pertaining to prayer being interrupted and students being called terrorists. None of these things are okay. But I'd like to point out that this should be addressed internally within staff in the district, not via a ceasefire proclamation. It seems that some cultural awareness training for staff in the school board would be beneficial. This board is supposed to be impartial. However, that was not the appearance you gave at the last meeting. Now, I'd like to address the comment that the Jewish population isn't speaking out by sharing my story, and my daughter just shared it. Last year, my daughter received an inaccurate, propaganda-based video about Palestine from a classmate. She was sent this video after telling this classmate that I have been to Israel, and the classmate's response was, "My family doesn't like Israel. I have a video that shows why." I didn't like the way this was handled, but I didn't go to the media or make it a larger issue. But I will not remain silent and let this school board mistakenly think that the Jewish students and families in this community are not negatively affected by the conflict in the Middle East. Thank you.
Next, we have Naima Khan.
Hello, my name is Naima Khan. This is my third time here at the school board meeting. I want to thank you all for the time that you gave us at the last meeting on Valentine's Day. I know that was a brutally long, over 6-hour meeting, and I appreciate the time and effort that you showed, your dedication to this community. Since then, I have reached out to all of the board members individually, again, asking for a peace proclamation. For some reason, people take issue with the word ceasefire, even though it's calling for an end of violence for all, for both sides, return of hostages, all of that. But instead, we can focus more on how this proclamation pertains to all the students, whether they are Jewish or Muslim or Palestinian and non-Palestinian. And I shared a proposed document, with the proposed peace proclamation, outlining how we can protect our students. And I ask you again to please motion, please vote on this. I asked all of you to weigh in with your views on the verbiage of that document as well. I actually did not receive any feedback or suggestions for improvements from most of you. I know one of you did say you still weren't sure how this pertains to the school district, and then again, I sent it again and I said, please tell me what doesn't pertain to the students, and I did not hear a response to that. I did receive another suggestion, a proclamation, why not have the children do it? Why not have the students come together and do that? The problem is the students are still not comfortable to speak up on this issue, and which is why it has to come from you, the leaders, the adults, to show them that yes, it is safe for you to talk about where you're from. Yes, it is safe for you to talk about what is happening in this world right now, which I know is weighing on all the children's mental health. Just this week, we saw over 117 people massacred while they were starving, waiting in line for flour, because they are being starved. They're not starving, they're deliberately being starved by the state of Israel. We saw a U.S. serviceman burn himself to death. And your children are seeing that, your students are seeing that. Their mental health is not okay. We need this peace proclamation to come from you first, to tell them it's okay to feel what you're feeling. It is okay for you to talk about what's happening with your families, and we will not censor you. We will not censor your native culture, and we allow you to be who you are. And so this is to support all the students. So if you have people coming up here saying, please don't pass anything, we're all good, you know that they're not all good. They came here and told you themselves that they are not all good. Thank you.
Next, we have Jenna Alewa.
Hi, everyone. I would like to echo Naima's sentiments. Definitely thankful for everything that you guys did the last board meeting. I know it was a long time. I actually watched it on the plane and ended up paying for the internet because I wanted to watch. So I'm very grateful and thankful to all of you. We did email you, most of you. Some responded regarding the peace proclamation, and I actually have it here just in case if anybody didn't read it but would like to hear the words. So I will begin. Proposed language for proclamation for peace. Whereas we stand for peace in our schools, in our community, in our nation, and in our world, and whereas we have an opportunity in this present moment to make long-sought changes in how we treat one another, and whereas we are committed to providing a learning environment wherein all students and staff feel welcome, seen, heard, valued, and respected, and whereas global conflicts throughout the world have led to significant loss of life and suffering, affecting the people who live in those regions, as well as the mental and emotional health of students, staff, families within our school district, especially those with connections to the impacted regions. Now therefore be it resolved that we stand for peace and firmly condemn all forms of hate speech, discrimination, and acts of prejudice, whether subtle or overt. We expect all members of our school community to honor our commitment to peace by treating one another with dignity, respect, civility, and common courtesy, even where personality conflicts or differing opinions exist. We affirm our commitment to creating an inclusive educational environment that respects and values diversity of people and perspectives, that actively promotes peace, understanding, and mutual respect among all members of the school community. We encourage educators within our district to facilitate informed and respectful educational dialogue, aiming to foster a deeper understanding among students and staff and to combat misinformation and prejudice. We denounce censorship of historical facts and support the expression of Native and ethnic culture. So I actually have a copy for all of you to hand out, and we would really appreciate your feedback, as we've asked, in regards to what you think needs to be changed, pros, cons. We are willing to work one-on-one. And also I want to thank you to, for Mr. Donald for taking on the responsibility and offering to put forth policy. So kudos.
You can leave the copies right there. We'll pass them out for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Naomi Lieberman. I'm sorry, is it Liebman or Lieberman? I'm not sure.
Lieberman.
Okay, sorry. Couldn't see the R.
My name is Naomi Lieberman, and I am in 8th grade at Farmington STEAM Academy, and I am a Jewish Israeli student and have an Israeli citizenship. My first language is Hebrew, and I speak it in my home. I don't feel safe at school, and so do many other Jewish children. This year, I have experienced many threats in my family and in the Jewish community. I have heard many things such as from the river to the sea, which who those don't know is called to destruction in the state of Israel. These comments are coming from different students, not just opinionated students. One kid said, if they were Hitler, they would get me first. I don't tolerate this, and especially at school, since our main point of school is learning. If we don't feel safe, how can we learn effectively? I feel so unsafe, I'm leaving the district for high school, and so are many other students. We need to do better in our schools, in our community.
Thank you. Next, we have Dolly Klen.
Good evening. My name is Dolly Klein, and I have 2 students in the elementary school, and I work at the elementary school as a lunch teacher. I am here as a Jewish person who works in the school and has students in the school, and I feel like I cannot be silent against the humanitarian crisis that is going on in Gaza right now. I feel that we need a peace, and I feel that the situation in Gaza puts all Jewish people in the district in more harm than a peace resolution would, to show that we as a district, Jews uniting with Muslims against the atrocities that are going on in Gaza right now. And I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity to speak about this.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Okay. Okay. Next, we have Thomas Hull.
Good evening, everyone. There's a few bullet points I just want to reach out here and request. First, request that a committee to be created with the full support of the school board administration led by the DEI director, Greg Smith, with Black students and parents to develop best practices for the district to adopt to address the needs of our students. Second point would be the administration adopted the request to the student body to give student surveys each semester on the quality of the teaching they receive, and this feedback be used in evaluating teachers' performance. The third point would be to remove the practice of providing a safe haven for teachers or staff who create a harmful and toxic environment for all students. And with that, as was alluded earlier, that a lot of, it takes a lot of courage to stand up here and to expose yourself of your feelings. And I do appreciate and admire all the folks who stood up and spoke, because it's hard. It's hard too, because you feel like you're the only one, but everybody else is counting on you to actually say what's needed. So don't look at just a 1 or 2 representation or 1 or 2 person say, hey, they have a problem. For every one person, it's about thousands of us actually feel the same way. I believe that by us listening and actually seriously enforcing the policies that's already put in place. If we don't have a policy, put it in place, but the main point is just enforcing it. If we can just start enforcing everything and make a concerted effort instead of saying we're going to do something then it just fade away, and nothing's ever going to get done. We're kicking a can over and over again since before my time. And I know since 2000, for far as I remember, 2009, when the demographics and everything in the whole district started to change, and we never really tackled this problem. So I'm for all. Let's overcome one day, but let's just one day be like today, So let's all just get this stuff together, so our children and our children's children won't have the same exact conversation we're having, like I'm having with my great grandfather's having right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Azizi Samidi. I apologize that I'm mispronouncing some things.
Good evening, respected Superintendent and board members. My name is Azizi Smidi, and I am a substitute teacher here at Farmington Public Schools. In schools, we teach children not to take what's not theirs, not to shove, not to push, not to hit, hurt, or harm, and to obey and follow rules so they can become great citizens in this world. And most importantly, bullying is not permitted in our schools. But guess what? Our government is supporting, funding, and aiding the biggest bully in this world, Israel. Israel kills, imprisons, harvests human organs, starves the whole population of Palestinians in Gaza. During these difficult times, students here at Farmington Public Schools are looking for leaders, who are you, who can foster understanding and empathy of global issues, such as a genocide that is taking place live as I am speaking here. By not passing a ceasefire resolution, you are giving a clear statement to FPS students that you stand with injustice, segregation, brutality. Don't let the fear of being labeled anti-Semitic prevent you from protecting students in the district. Our mainstream media has been serving the Israelis by downplaying and justifying the genocide in Gaza. However, in the past few months, we have seen on social media raw footage of the unfolding catastrophe committed by the Israeli army against the civilians of Gaza. This genocide has opened the eyes of millions of Americans to the Israeli occupation of our own U.S. government, our schools, and our city governments. Let's not put masking tape over a problem by saying, yeah, we will allow students putting stickers on their lockers so they can express themselves. We need real action, like a permanent ceasefire, proclamation. As citizens, we have a moral duty to call for a ceasefire. We have a very diverse student body. The administrators like to wear it around, but unfortunately, equality and equity still need to be improved significantly. FPS should have a core value to respect and understand that there are differences, but committing genocide should not be something debatable in any way.
I'm sorry, that's time. Thank you. Next, we have Melina Paratsakis.
Good evening. Good evening, board members. It should be clear by now why we're here. The situation overseas is dire. We need a ceasefire. It gets more severe every day. Hundreds are dying from starvation and from hypothermia, and that shouldn't even be a thing, except they don't have energy from lack of food to warm themselves up and even stay alive for more than a couple nights. Thing is, there's a lot of smoke screening going on here. I heard somebody mention that they're like, they don't feel safe about a specific comment. They said, from the river to the sea. They forgot to mention the rest of it. It's, the full statement is, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And it's specifically talking about the Jordan River, which separates the West Bank and Jordan. They're talking about that river, to the sea, which is the Mediterranean Sea. They're talking about all the land that's between the river and the sea. They're talking about, that's Palestine right there. And they're talking about how it's going to be free. They didn't mention Israel. There's no mention of Israel. There's no mention of Jews. There's no mention of hate or killing or anything like that. It's just, they're going to gain their freedom one day. And another thing, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, they're completely different things. Arabs and Jews, they're both Semites, because a Semite is somebody who speaks one of the Semitic languages, like Arabic, Aramaic, or Hebrew. And Palestinians, they speak Arabic, and therefore they are Semites. So I don't really understand how a Palestinian or an Arab could be anti-Semitic. And I know you guys don't like the term ceasefire, or cessation of hostilities or whatever that is, but you could do a resolution in support of the Palestinians, support you could do a resolution that says you support the Palestinians and the difficulties they go through. You don't have to say ceasefire, but you could say you understand what they're going through, and you recognize that it's a very painful time for them, and that you understand and that you care and you're there, and that you support us. Thank you.
Next, we have Alexandria Paratsakis.
Good evening. Good evening, respected board members. My name is Alexandria Paratsakis, and I'm a Palestinian Greek American and a freshman in high school. I first want to thank you all for making the time last week, or a few weeks ago, especially to hear about our worries and concerns, but I really have to be honest with you. I'm really respectfully disappointed that our school board, at the school board level, you can't call for a ceasefire. For right now, I want us to move forward and for us to take the next steps that we are going to do to help my fellow students and I. We as a community want a proclamation that protects our free speech, condemns all hate speech such as Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and racist speech. We want you to encourage truthful, unbiased education, balanced, informed dialogue, and more. We want you to make sure that such action is taken against anyone who creates an unsafe learning environment, whether it's against an African American, Palestinian, Muslim, Jew, or Arab, and even a white person. Let me make this clear that being against Zionism is not anti-Semitism. We would like for our schools to teach a balanced history in school. We cannot whitewash history and ignore atrocities that are committed by our own government because it's just uncomfortable. We want all school libraries and classrooms to contain books from balanced perspectives devoid of all propaganda. We want our world history classes to include the history of African and Middle Eastern empires and be covered in just as much depth as the European ones. Can students and teachers feel comfortable discussing current events without fearing repercussions? Last month, or about a month and a half ago, South Africa sued the state of Israel for committing genocide, and in a landmark case in the International Court of Justice. Why did our news outlets neglect to air South Africa's arguments and only aired Israel's defense? And if a teacher decides to explore media bias or teach about the history of Palestine, is their job protected? How many civics classes are talking about the fact that celebrated activist Shaun King has been banned from all major social media platforms because his tireless activist advocacy on behalf of the Palestinians. We need you to improve the Farmington Public School District education system to improve and help all people. You need to make sure that all your students, majority or minority, are protected and safe, as well as represented in a respectful and truthful way. We deserve a real education, one that doesn't just give voice to those in power and silence those who are oppressed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jenna Paratsakis.
Good evening, Farmington Public School board members. My name is Jenna Paratsakis, and I'm 12 years old. I have to admit tonight, I'm really nervous to get up here because, it's really coming back to me what happened last year. I made a video that was purely educational. It was fact-checked. It was everything, and it was for a class called Future Problem Solvers. I showed the video to another student, and this student started spreading horrible rumors about me all around the school. She told everyone that I hated Jews, I wanted all Jews to die, and multiple times last year I had panic attacks, and I never wanted to go back to that school again. Thankfully now I'm at STEAM and I'm doing better. I love STEAM. But I want to also, I just want to say that I don't want that anything that happened last year to happen to me ever again or any other student. No matter what religion they are, what race they are, what background they are, what all walks of life. I don't want that to happen to anyone because it made me feel really bad inside, and I just don't want that to happen to anyone. I also want to go over the misconception that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is in any way anti-Semitic, because it's not. Number one, like my sister went over, Arabs are Semites, meaning we can't be against ourselves. That doesn't make sense. And also, from the Jordanian River to the Mediterranean Sea is the territory that was once Palestine before it was colonized. And that phrase refers to the fact that Palestinians who are being oppressed daily. I was fortunately able to meet Sheda Hanesha, a journalist who was with, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Shireen Abu Akleh. She got shot in the head while wearing in full press gear. So Sheda was with her when she died. She was right next to her, and I got to meet her, and her brother actually got arrested by Israeli soldiers for nothing, okay? And Palestinians are being oppressed daily. In Gaza, they are being murdered. It is a genocide in Gaza, and you guys are sitting here wondering whether you should call for a ceasefire, whether it's in the purview of your school board. They don't get a chance in Gaza. They're dying in Gaza, okay? And I talk about myself in my own experiences, but it's 1,000 times worse over there. And you really need to pass a ceasefire resolution because that's the only humane thing to do at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Gina Erpardo? Or Erpardo?
Hi there. Yes. I wasn't planning to make any speech today. I didn't prepare anything. I just, after hearing so many comments, decided to stand up and say just a couple of sentences. First of all, I was born and raised in Turkey until I was 26. My first language is Turkish, and I'm a Jewish person. So I am from Turkey. My brothers and sisters are all Muslims. So I'm trying to be very not picking one side or anything because, as I said, they are my sisters, brothers, and best friends. We are in a very difficult situation, what's going on right now. My opinion is here I heard about genocide, I heard about from river to the sea, if it is racist or not. I heard stealing the organs. This is new to me. So I feel like we are talking too many stuff that we shouldn't discuss those kind of things here. The school board, school district, elementary school students, middle school, high school, they shouldn't discuss any side's political agenda. I find it highly disrespectful, highly inappropriate. So I am just wishing, I think we shouldn't talk about which side is right, what happened to them, what happened to us, here, them. If you sit and talk, everyone has their own reasons. I understand. And what's going on in Palestine, the innocent Palestinians and children, they don't deserve it. I agree. But should we blame Israel? We should blame Hamas. There was a ceasefire until October 7, but I shouldn't even say that. This environment, we are not talking about the political agendas. We should talk about how our children should be safe. Every parent in their house, stop teaching hate. So then our children are not gonna repeat what they are hearing. I am seeing some children here, and I see that they are picking a side. Somebody says something, they are doing yes, or, you know, they are excited, but this is wrong. Because as we get older, maybe we are gonna learn more about the facts, and we are gonna change but children, 10 years old, 12 years old, they shouldn't say, if I was Hitler, I should give Naomi first. Or nobody said any Muslim child name or call like a terrorist. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And this is all political agenda.
I'm sorry, that's time.
That's time.
Sorry.
I hope you don't be a part of that political agenda.
I'm sorry, that's time. Thank you. Next, we have Doreen Dickman.
Hi, good evening. My name's Doreen Dickman. I have a 10th grade daughter at North Farmington, and I have a graduate from North Farmington in 2019. I honestly was not going to speak tonight. I came to support my niece who spoke and my sister-in-law who spoke, and to just kind of be here as a support person. But we have a real problem in our district, and not with Jewish students and Palestinian students. I feel like any student who attends our school district has a target on their back if they are different in any way, shape, or form. If their hair is blue, somebody's gonna laugh at them or bark at them. My daughter has told me students bark at her in the hallway at school. She doesn't have blue hair, but they bark. We have an issue with the culture and the climate in our schools. And it starts at the top, and it works its way down to our children. And it starts in the home, and it works its way to our children. And listening here to some of the things that have been said this evening really demonstrates why we have the issues that we're having. The amount of anger and vitriol that has been coming out, standing here, speaking in a public setting, that is a part of the problem. Ceasefire, that is not a school community issue. That is something that they are meeting about in Egypt, in Paris. That is something that many different countries have come together and put their heads together. They are way more educated than all of us, right? And they are the ones who have to come up with a ceasefire. And they have to make an agreement. We don't make that agreement. What we say here, they could care less. They have their own agendas. That is their business. You want to talk about peace, you want to talk about bullying, you want to put things together to make our students in the building, every single student, no sighing when other people talk about their sides, no comments, no eye rolling. That is being translated and transferred to our children. In my house and in my family, we are taught that you go and you are a appropriate, and that you don't yell and raise your voice, and that you speak intelligently, and that you speak respectfully. Coming and yelling at all of you, that's not respectful. And we're all passionate about it. Trust me, I have a lot of conversations in my home with my family and my children. When my daughter comes home and cries because kids are making comments, when my girlfriend calls me and tells me that a student made a Heil Hitler signal at her son in 10th grade at North, we have a lot of conversations, but we are trying to be respectful, and I would appreciate if other people were too.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Do you have the card? Thank you. Okay. Nia Paratsakis.
Good evening, respected board members, Superintendent Delgado. Thank you again for being here, all present and alert and patient. I want to say we don't come here with prepared speeches, and we teach our children to respect every religion, all races. We don't see color, we don't see religion, we don't see social economic class. What we see are people, and that's what Islam teaches us. First off, I want to say that it's the Israeli-Palestinian issue has been going on for 100 years. When Zionists like Theodore Herzl decided to put set his sights on Palestine and begin the systematic ethnic cleansing of Palestine. Palestinians have been undergoing a 100-year brutal occupation that has massacred, erased 525 villages off the face of the earth. 750,000 people were expelled and removed forcibly from their homes in 1948. I could go on and on. It's not complicated. It's not Jewish versus Muslim. You know what's anti-Semitic? Anti-Semitic is associating the Star of David and Judaism with the horrific brutality of the Israeli settler colonialism occupation that has been systematically ethnic cleansing Palestinians for 100 years. The genocide that's been going on in Gaza for the last 150 days has been unhinged by Israel. They can't hide anymore. They can't project their hypocrisy. They teach their kids hatred at home, not us, okay? My family is Palestinian. My family is from Jerusalem. I have lived in Jerusalem. I remember AK-47s, Uzis, pointed at Palestinians as a kid. I can't erase that. What's going on in Gaza right now is a million times worse. Do you know why Gazans are at the level that they are? Is because Israel has had a siege that's controlled every calorie that went in. People can't leave for cancer treatments, for dialysis. They've killed every nephrologist in Gaza. They've killed every journalist. They've killed every university professor. They've killed every system of life in Gaza. Everything in the West Bank is affected too. They've arrested and killed every Palestinian that they can get their hands on. Since October, there has never been a ceasefire in Palestine.
I'm sorry, that's time. Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Oh, thank you. Kelly Goldberg.
Good evening. I'd like to circle back to board responsibilities, and from the 17 years that my 3 children were Farmington public school students, we expected the board and the district leadership to set the tone for our students and how they were treated. And it was apparent to me then that children who didn't look like mine were being treated differently. They had different opportunities. Their teachers didn't give them second chances. They were immediately singled out if there was an incident that occurred. And last Saturday, I had the opportunity to attend a listening session with several state representatives where parents came forward and shared their reasons that they were either going to leave Farmington schools or that they already had left Farmington schools. So I'm just here to say that you need to hold your leadership accountable. Every single incident in the 17 years that I've heard about has been treated as a one-off. And I've said this before, whether it was cheerleaders at Harrison being referred to as strippers, whether it was a child having hands put on him by a substitute teacher who yanked him out of his seat because he did not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which was his right, whether students were subjected to abusive behavior from adults hired through a very dubious third-party group, these were mostly black students who were affected. And I'm here to say to my fellow Jewish people in the room, to my Muslim counterparts, there are people loving it right now that there is tension between us, and they are Nazis, and they have been marching in different cities, and they would love to see us incinerate each other. And we need to rise above this and come together as a community and not be at each other's throats. And I want our board to get back to the business of creating a culture of respect and a culture where every child feels safe. And with the pitch and dysregulated passion that we are understandably feeling, there are people out there who will target us. There are lone wolves out there. Both anti-Muslim and anti-Jewish incidents have risen exponentially in the last year since October 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have, I'm having a hard time reading your writing. Is it Pareya? Yeah, Pareya. Okay, I'm sorry. Pareya Fusadine? Yeah. Okay.
Hi, FPS board members. Honestly, I have nothing prepared. I really wasn't planning on speaking. I mean, I just submitted the thing. I just want to interrogate, who gets to decide what is inappropriate and what's not, and the privilege of that. For someone to be able to decide that something happening that's deeply affecting a group of students is so inappropriate that it shouldn't be talked about, there is so much privilege and power in who gets to decide what that is. And the kind of decorum that is expected of people who are continuing to go through trauma, and I'm saying this as someone who's not Palestinian. Yeah, you're expected to come up and to state your cause with so much polity and decorum and kindness, and there's just so much trauma and pain and hurt, and when no one is listening to you, when you literally have to come back week after week to ask for support, to beg for it, and to be silenced so easily by being said that this isn't appropriate, when that's literally your lived reality, I don't know, what else can be said about that? I mean, isn't that the point of education? Isn't that the point of what we're supposed to be teaching in schools, is how can you bring your truth to the table and still be dignified for it? I mean, there's so many conversations happening right now about school culture and who feels safe and who doesn't feel safe. But the very idea that you have to act a certain way or present yourself a certain way in order to be given the privilege to feel safe is so wrong. That's not what a school should be. It should be granted to people. This was said a lot earlier by Naima Khan. This has to come from leadership. This has to be a tone set by board members. This has to be a tone set by teachers. This has to be something that is, it is a systematic problem. We can talk about history teaching and cultural competency for teachers and all of that, but it's also something that sometimes has to be done and deeply interrogated by board members, and that has to be an example set for students in schools. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sala A. When you're done, you'll need to put your last name on the card, okay?
Good evening. My name is Saleh, and I'm an 8th grader at Farmington STEAM Academy. If you were to ask a Palestinian kid what their dream is, they would say, I want bread, I want food, I want to go to school. If you ask a kid here, they would probably say $1 million, a Lamborghini, school to finish. I don't want school. It's really sad how they can't even go to school. They can't even eat bread. A friend of mine at Farmington STEAM Academy yesterday, him and his group of friends had a Palestinian flag torn and stepped on by a student, and this student came back to school normally with nothing happened to her. She didn't really get in trouble. And it's not okay to have that student just not get any trouble for hate, stepping on a Palestinian flag. It's really not nice. And calling for just peace won't make anybody mad. At least call for peace. It won't make anybody mad. If you are human, you want peace in the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, could you just come put your last name? Thank you so much. Yassine Alewa.
Good evening. My name is Yassine Alewa, and I want to talk about the genocide that's happening in Gaza right now. So there's been 13,000 children that has been killed from Israel, and killing children isn't they're not going to do anything, and they're not harming anybody. And children and kids in general, what are they going to do? I mean, they can't do anything. And over 30,000 people in Gaza have been killed right now from bombing from Israel. And there's no hate that should be going on between people right now, and everybody wants peace in the world. Nobody wants hate and nobody wants death. So please pass a ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Please, thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? Do we have any further public comment? Any further public comment? Okay, seeing no further public comment is now closed. Next, we move on to the consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. We have one more public comment. My apologies. Hang on 1 second. Is Hussein Paratsakis still here? Oh, Nia. Okay. I'm so sorry. Didn't realize, okay. Hang on, I need to look at something. Nia, I emailed you, so, but I didn't hear back, so see me after. It's okay, it's okay.
I move that we approve the minutes from the consent agenda for February 6, 2024 of the regular meeting and February 14, 2024 of the special meeting.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Weems to approve the consent agenda, supported by Mr. Rich. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Any discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion? Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Can we change I would like to make a motion to amend to have the February 14th meeting changed to a discussion opposed to it being a meeting, because it was more of dialogue and discussion in my eyesight. It was more of a tribunal. That was a holy holiday. And we sat here and we had members of this community that were reprimanded, victims being treated like the villains.
Ms. Smith, if you have a motion, make your motion, but we already have a motion open on the table.
And I'm having discussion around my motion.
That's not our process.
I'm having the discussion around my motion. So I'm asking that.
That is not our process.
Hold on one second, Ms. Weems.
No, Ms. Smith,
So I made a motion. Was it seconded?
It was seconded, so we have to
She
vote.
said that we have a discussion, and I'm saying yes. We just got served.
Hold on, Ms. Smith.
Ms. Smith.
So I think what needs to happen is procedurally, my motion, we need to do something with my motion first, and then we
Before we
can
come
handle
to
your
yours.
motion.
Because see, she wants to do all of this procedure stuff, but she just yelled out in the audience to
excuse me.
somebody, "Oh, I just emailed you." But then when I get ready to say
Ms.
something,
Smith,
no,
Ms.
you
Smith.
just wait a minute. We all have been filed, we've all been served
Ms.
papers.
Smith.
Miss Dr. Kalani, we just been
Ms.
served
Smith.
papers. And you
Ms.
gonna tell me
Smith,
we
it
not
is
gonna
not
have no
your
discussion?
turn. It is not your turn.
And it's
We have a
never my
motion
turn.
On the table.
You know what? You need to step down, ma'am.
Ms. Smith.
You need to step
Ms.
down.
Smith, I'm asking you again to please.
Well, I'm gonna tell you again, I'm not gonna be quiet. We all just got served papers.
We are adjourning, no, we can't adjourn, we have to do the vote on the motion, right?
Well,
Okay.
I tell you what, it ain't gonna be passed tonight, not by me.
Discussion.
We have to have discussion?
We have to have
Okay.
discussion.
All right. Any other discussion on this motion? Not on Ms. Smith's motion, on the motion around consent agenda.
That was that is discussion on this.
I just gave my discussion.
Okay.
So, can I ask a question?
Hang on, Mr. Rich.
So I definitely understand the calling it a discussion instead of a meeting, but since it was a public meeting, that is just what it was called was a special meeting. I understand that the dialogue occurred, but I do understand that issue.
Yes, I understand as well that there is a request to have it labeled as a discussion or a dialogue rather than a meeting, but that's what it's called. It's called a special meeting, and it was called that on the agenda and called that at the meeting. Yes.
So I think I agree, and I understand what the request was, but it was technically a meeting and a convening of the board where we had board business, so I think it technically is a meeting that had a discussion. I get what you're saying. So for that reason, I'm okay with the motion. If there's a second separate motion, that's a different story. But I think for purposes of the consent agenda, I wouldn't recommend a change to it.
Any other discussion? No further discussion.
Point of clarification, what exactly are we taking a motion on, please?
Okay, the motion is to approve the consent agenda, made by Ms. Weems, seconded by Mr. Rich. Ms. Smith would like to call an additional motion to change the wording of special meeting to discussion or dialogue. But procedurally, we can't entertain another motion until we close out this motion around the consent agenda. And what I've just heard from Mr. Rich, from myself, and from Ms. Weens, as well as Ms. Smith, while there is agreement that it was a different style of meeting than typical, and it involved a lot more dialogue among board meetings, which is, we structured it that way intentionally so that we would have an opportunity to, as a board of 7, dialogue around all of the issues raised during the February 6th public comment. We structured it that way intentionally. We have had discussion, and there is general consensus around that. Even though that was the style of the meeting, it still is considered a special meeting of the board. That's what we called it, to hold it, and that's what it was. And so.
Received. Thank you.
Okay. Did you have anything for, okay. So
I'm not withdrawing my motion, which would be the only way we can entertain another one.
Right, so we're not withdrawing the motion.
I'd like to call a question.
We have it seconded, and so we'll proceed with the roll call vote on approving or not approving the consent agenda, or abstaining.
Ms. Smith?
No.
Ms. Fox?
No.
Ms. Weems?
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
I myself am a yes. Motion carries.
Yes. I'm a yes, too.
I'm so sorry, Dr. Blatt.
That's okay. I'm a yes as well. Okay, thank you.
Can I just say one thing? I just want to say, I don't do a lot of talk here. I just want to say,
Is this pertaining to one of our agenda items?
I just want to say.
Okay, if it's not pertaining to one of our agenda items, Ms. Fox.
Oh, okay.
Is it?
All
is
right,
it-
okay, you do your thing. All
Okay,
you had to do, she did nothing wrong, she did nothing
We're
wrong.
moving
You won't even
on.
listen. You won't even listen
We
to her.
are moving on procedurally
You do
to
that.
our
You
reports
go do
from
that.
board representatives. Are there any reports from board representatives? Yes. Ms. Heinrich.
Yes, I have a report that the Student Roundtable met on February 13th. And I want to report on that. The purpose, and I just want to review with our community, the purpose of the Student Roundtable is to provide an opportunity for the exchange of ideas and suggestions among students, administrators, and school board members. In addition, the Roundtable has committed itself to fostering cooperation among the district's high schools, promoting community service, and developing student leadership for students to use for future years. And it's representatives from all 3 high schools, Farmington Central High School, Farmington High School, and North Farmington High School, and the principals of the high schools attend in addition to the students, and Dr. Gilgato attends. I attend as a board representative. Mr. Greg Smith attends also. And they are having a career fair on Friday, May 3rd, and I'm really impressed because this is a 2-year process, and they have this set up as far as committees.
Thank you.
And the administrators of the high schools have been really supportive, and so they decided it's going to be at North Farmington High School, and it's going to be from 1:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. They're targeting, or they're initially for juniors and seniors, and then if there's enough space available, they'll open it up to underclassmen. And the other high schools are going to have a special schedule and special activities for the students that are remaining, not participating during that. And in addition to the career fair, they're going to have, Mr. Green is actually going to do a session on resume writing and interview skills. They're going to have a FAFSA Federal Financial Aid Forum from the counselors, and they're going to talk to the credit union for financial literacy. So that's pretty good. They're looking for volunteers to present. Now this is Friday, May 3rd, and these are the careers. They have investment banking, engineers, software engineer, IT, consultant, doctor, surgeon, physician's assistant, lawyer, athlete, nurse, dentist, mechanic, electrical engineer, neurosurgeon, global commerce, art teacher, performing arts, dermatologist, clinical psychologist, ASL translator, computer scientist, cardiologist, research business owner, government politics, UX designer, therapist, marketer. So if you have any of those career specialties and would like to participate, then email Dr. Delgado. We'll take your information and pass it on. And he also led a conversation with the students about two things. We were having a community dialogue on athletics. And so I'm really impressed because the students are really thoughtful and they really engage in meaningful conversation and shared a lot of their information or their ideas about athletics that Dr. Delgado brought to the community dialogue and shared with the community as they had that conversation. And they also had a conversation about anti-Semitic, anti-Muslim sentiment in our schools. And I'm really impressed because these students are from different backgrounds, really diverse, represent them, and they really have respectful conversations. And I'm so impressed with the way the students are able to talk to each other and talk to the superintendent and the principals. And so there's a lot of, and they point out problems, and Dr. Delgado takes notes, and Greg Smith is there taking notes also. So I don't want to say that we're not doing anything, but we are doing things, and there needs to be more done also. I don't want to get off topic. So that was the topic of the student roundtable. Thank you.
Any other reports from board representatives?
Can I just make one comment? Just wanted to reiterate what Mrs. Heinrich mentioned about the Student Roundtable Career Fair. So they're looking for adults in our community who are in the professions that, as young people, they're seeking to talk to you about how you become any of these various professions. And I know she just read those off, but Mrs. Bauman and I will be working to send out a correspondence to the community if you'd be willing to serve and hold a booth for these young people's career fair. So they're very excited. They've been working about 1.5 years on this, and they're working, as young leaders do, to organize all the logistics. But we need our community to come out and help us. If you're in any of these professions, we would excitedly ask you to volunteer for our young people. So thank you.
Okay. If there are no further reports from board representatives, then our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.